In 1940, a man could catch the rain that fell on his own roof, dig a well in his own yard, raise the hogs that fed his family, and build the house they all lived in without asking a single soul for permission. Today, half of that would get you a fine, a permit notice, or a knock on the door. These weren't crimes when your grandfather did them. They were simply how a self-reliant family lived before 1,000 well-meaning rules quietly turned them into something you're not supposed to do. Number 6 is still a federal offense, and your grandfather probably knew a man who did it anyway. And number 2 was banned in most American cities, even though it cost nothing and fed millions. Before we start, hit that subscribe button, because what your grandfather did without thinking twice is about to surprise you. Let's count down the 10 so-called illegal skills our grandfathers used that still work today. Number 10, catching the rain. Your grandfather set barrels and cisterns under his gutters and caught every drop that fell on the farmhouse roof. A single inch of rain on 1,000 square feet of roof delivers over 600 gallons, and he knew that the way he knew the angle of the sun. For decades, several western states technically restricted rainwater collection under old water rights laws, treating the rain as already promised to someone downstream. But the method never stopped working, and the rules have been loosening ever since. Colorado made home rain barrels legal again in 2016, and other states followed. Your grandfather never needed a court to tell him that a dry August and a full barrel beat an empty one. The water that lands on your own roof was always the easiest water there was. Number 9, foraging the woods. Your grandmother walked the public forest with a basket and came home with berries, hickory nuts, mushrooms, and wild greens, the same ground her family had gathered from for 100 years. Then came the collection limits and the permit requirements, written mostly for commercial foragers, but written broadly enough to sweep up subsistence families too. In some parks, picking a single wildflower is technically against the rules now. Most national forests still allow personal gathering of a couple gallons a day. You simply have to read the regulations first. The harder loss is the knowledge itself. Which mushroom, which berry, which root is safe was never something you could learn from a book. It passed from one person to the next, and where that chain broke, it is nearly gone. Number 8, digging a well. Before drilling companies and permits, your grandfather dug his own well, lined it with stone to keep the surface water out, and fitted it with a hand pump that gave clean water for free. Most states now require a licensed driller and a permit for any new well, largely to protect the aquifer, which is a fair reason. But the old skill of reading the land for shallow water and reaching it by hand survives mostly now in Amish and Mennonite communities that never set it down. In a long power outage, a drilled well with an electric pump gives you nothing. Your grandfather's hand-dug well kept right on giving water for as long as his arm could work the handle. Number 7, saving his own seed. Every fall, your grandfather walked the garden with a paper bag and collected the seed from his best tomatoes, beans, and squash, dried it on newspaper, and stored it in labeled envelopes for spring. Because his were open-pollinated varieties, bred over generations, that seed grew back true, identical to the parent plant. By the 1970s, seed companies had begun quietly replacing those with hybrids whose second-generation seed won't breed true, and today, saving and replanting certain patented seed is actually against the law. Seed libraries now exist in all 50 states specifically to keep the old varieties alive. Use them. Your grandfather never needed a license to grow food from the seed of his own harvest. The next one isn't a tidy garden chore. It is still a federal crime today, and it sits at the very center of what self-reliance used to mean. Number 6, making his own spirits. Prohibition ended in 1933, but distilling your own spirits at home stayed a federal offense, and it still is, with real penalties attached. The reason is tax revenue, not safety. Your grandfather fermented apple cider into hard cider that kept through the winter, and he very likely knew a quiet man with a small still back in the hills. Here is the part worth knowing, though. Fermentation itself, the science underneath all of it, is completely legal and completely yours. Home brewing of beer and wine is legal in most states. Sauerkraut, sourdough, vinegar, cheese, yogurt, all of it is the same ancient craft of turning raw food into something that lasts, and no one can take that knowledge from your kitchen. Number 5. Milk straight from the cow. Your grandmother milked the cow at dawn and fed her children the milk within hours, while it was still warm. In 1987, the FDA banned the sale of raw milk across state lines, and many states tightened their own rules after that, citing the risk of bacteria. The cow in her barn was healthy because she could walk out and see the cow. Studies from Europe have found that children raised on raw milk from known healthy animals had noticeably lower rates of asthma and allergies. 31 states now allow some form of raw milk sale, often through herd share arrangements where you own a piece of the cow. The access got complicated. The knowledge of how it was done and why it mattered is still worth carrying. Number 4. Butchering his own hog. In November, when the first hard frost came, the whole neighborhood gathered because one family could not do it alone. A single hog became hams, bacon, sausage, lard, and cracklings, and nothing at all was wasted. Cities began banning backyard slaughter through the 1960s and 70s, mostly over sanitation, though the small family producer was rarely the part of the system that needed fixing. More than a dozen states still expressly permit personal use slaughter on your own land. The single clean method your grandfather used is among the most humane there is, and the skill of breaking down an animal with care and respect, wasting nothing, is a kind of knowledge that has almost entirely left us. Number 3. Building his own house. Before licensed contractors, permits, and inspections, American families built their own homes and barns. The community gathered for a raising, the frame went up in a single day, everyone worked, and everyone left fed. Modern building codes now require licensed contractors and permits for nearly all structural work, partly for genuine safety and partly to protect the trades from competition. But owner-builder exemptions still exist in most states, and timber framing and natural building schools still teach the old methods across the country. Your grandfather built a house with his own hands that stood for 100 years, and the most important rule he had to mind was simply the setback line at the edge of his property. Number 2. Keeping animals in town. Here is number 2, banned in most American cities, even though it fed millions and cost almost nothing. In 1940, nearly every family with a yard kept a few chickens. Eggs were collected each morning, kitchen scraps went to the birds ate the insects, and their manure fed the garden. It was a closed and elegant little system. By 1960, most cities had zoned livestock out entirely over smell and noise, which made real sense downtown, but got applied with a broad brush all the way out into the quiet suburbs. The backyard chicken movement has since reversed much of it. Over 150 American cities now allow a small flock of hens. Eggs from hens that roam and eat scraps test higher in omega-3s and vitamin D. Your grandmother knew her hens by name, and you can too. Number 1. Living free on his own land. And the one underneath all the others, number 1, isn't a single trick at all. It is the whole point of them. Your grandfather could catch his own water, dig his own well, grow and save his own seed, raise and butcher his own meat, and build the house it all happened inside of, and he could do every last bit of it without asking a single person for permission. He wasn't a criminal, and he wasn't a rebel. He was just self-reliant, in the plain, ordinary way that nearly every family once was. None of these things were crimes when he did them. They were simply how a free family lived on a piece of land. The rules that came afterward were mostly written for decent reasons, for safety, for crowded cities, for clean shared water, and most of them made real sense. But somewhere down in that growing pile of rules, we quietly let go of the simple assumption that a man could provide for his own family straight out of the ground beneath his feet. That wasn't stolen from us in some grand scheme. We set it down ourselves, a little at a time, and forgot we were ever holding it. The knowledge didn't die. It just went quiet, waiting in the hands of the last people who actually lived it. So here is my challenge. Pick one, just one. Set a barrel under your downspout this week. Plant a row of open-pollinated seeds and save them this fall. Find a neighbor who keeps hens and ask them how they started. Then teach it to someone younger before the year is out, because that is the only way any of this ever traveled, hand to hand, one quiet skill at a time. Tell me in the comments which of these your grandparents did and which one you are bringing back first, because this knowledge was never supposed to die with them. It was supposed to pass to us.